Hi Mahen.
Hi Ashwin.
So I can see you're ready for the rain.
Oh, I
Rainy
am.
season.
Yes, I
But
am.
the big question is your car ready for the rainy season?
I am not too sure.
Well, let's have a look and find out what we need to consider in our cars for this season, shall we?
Please.
So, let's start talking about wiper blades, shall we? Now, the wiper blades are what keep your windscreen clean in the rain as well as when you wash your windscreen. So, on the topic of washing your windscreen, always make sure that your windscreen washer fluid bottle, which is under the hood, is kept topped up. Back to the wiper blade, the actual blade part of the wiper blade is made of rubber. Now, since we've been having an incredible heat wave for the past few months and a lot of sun, rubber deteriorates under sunshine. So, your wiper blades have a very good chance that they are not at their peak performance. You can just about see the rubber part of the wiper blade there. Therefore, if you haven't changed your wiper blades at all in 2024 or haven't changed them in over a year for that matter, change them now because there's going to be rain for the rest of May. June will most likely have rain too, as will July and August. So, changing your wiper blades now is a great way to go about it unless you suddenly forget about it and then you go on the highway or something and find yourself in trouble. Now, talking about the highway, there are certain wiper blades which have aero properties or certain design elements that as you go faster, they use the wind flow against the windscreen and the wiper blade push the wiper more on the windscreen. Consider those kinds of wiper blades if you do a lot of highway driving when you're going at 80 kilometers per hour or faster. Now, in terms of how many wiper blades and the size, Mahen's Renault Kwid has a single wiper for the front windscreen. Some cars have two wipers. You need to make sure that you get the correct length of wiper blades, particularly on cars with two wipers, because the two blades move in synchronization. They move in tandem. So if your blades are not sized properly, they are either going to knock each other or there's going to be a massive portion of your windscreen that is left unwiped. And once again, you don't want that either. And some vehicles have a rear wiper as well. Do not neglect the rear wiper blade. I know it's a very easy part to neglect because you may think, I rarely use the rear wiper. But chances are you will need to use your rear wiper in a condition when it's raining heavily outside, probably a bit dark and you can't see properly what's behind you even if you have a camera. So you need your rear wiper blade to be in peak condition as well. So now we've spoken about wipers, let's move to the next area that you must look at for the rainy season.
Ashok, another thing to note about wipers is that when you look at the different brands out there, you get cheaper options and you get options that may be a little more expensive. Sometimes I feel it is important that we consider what is best for our car, because what I heard is there are some wipers or wiper blades that conform to the shape of your windscreen and some just remain flat and may not do the job as it should.
That's a very good point, Mahen. Now looking at the blade on your Kwid, you can see that the blade part itself bows inwards slightly like that. It's flexible. The entire blade is supported with several things that make it flexible. So when you rest the blade on the windscreen, you can see as I'm resting it on the windscreen, the blade is conforming to the size of the windscreen. So as the blade wipes, it will continue to conform to the contours of the windscreen and offer the optimal wiping performance.
Agreed.
And given our tropical rain showers, Mahen, I think you'll agree we need every single bit of windscreen wiping power we can get.
Very true. So another important tip is that we need to be mindful of our tires and its health. Have you noticed these wear bars? Even I did not know about this until Ashok told me about it. So these indicate the maximum level to which you can go before you should change your tires. So it is important that you keep track of where your wear bars are in relation to your overall tire and its tread rather. Another important thing to note is that when driving on wet surfaces, traction is very, very important. So your tires need to be up to mark. So always check your tires. Make sure you check the whole tire, not just the front side, the inside as well, and see if there are any damages on the tire. See if the thread is even. If the thread is not even, then there is an issue. It can be an issue with your alignment. It can be an issue with your bushing. It can be an issue with your suspension or your steering components. So make sure you check all that, especially if you have been running your car for a while and you haven't checked these things. Make sure you do it, not just on in rainy conditions, in normal conditions as well. Your tires and your tire health is very important to you, especially driving fast on the highway. If something happens to you, it could be deadly. So make sure you check these things out, and it is something very serious, guys.
One more thing to add, Mahen, is that tires have an expiry date, which is usually considered to be about 5 years from the date of manufacture of the tire. Now, if you
Very
look at
important
this
point.
tire, Mahen, we can see it says 4619, which means it was manufactured in week 46 of 2019. So you're kind of just about at the 5 year mark.
Correct.
So when you get to the 5 year mark, it's very important to actually check the condition of your tires, look at the inside edges as well, like you mentioned, and talk about things like cracking, cuts, bulges, bubbles, those kind of things. Because once a tire is 5+ years old, it's not going to be at its peak in terms of health. And that's another important tip when you're buying tires. Always ask the tire shop for tires that were made in the current year, or at the very least the previous year, as late as possible. So you're looking at for something made in early 2024 or late 2023. I see online many people advertise tires in good condition, but the year is 2020 or 2021, which means you effectively only get about 2 years of use out of that tire. So unless you're a very high mileage driver, it's a bit of a risk to take.
That's a
Now you
very
might
good
ask,
point.
why is tire expiry and things so important? Well, the thing is this, Mahen, it's because in a tropical country like ours, where there's a lot of heat, rubber deterioration happens faster. And that's why we need to be quite mindful about this whole tire expiry date thing.
That is very true. And Ashrat, this takes me back to a video clip that I watched on a lot of accidents that happened in the US. A lot of Ford SUVs were crashing on the motorways, and people couldn't figure out why. What had happened there was the tires that were issued for those vehicles rolling out of the factory were almost expired or expired. So those tires started bursting on the motorways, which caused the drivers to lose control of their vehicles. And no one expects a vehicle's tire to burst while driving, right? And what is also important to note is, when something like that happens, how do you react? You need to be calm, although it's tough to do that. We will talk about those things in the future. However, why is it important? This case study is a very good one for the future and for you to listen into. So, Ashrik, what are we talking about now?
Now we are talking about lights, and that is all the lights on your vehicle. Because in rainy weather, particularly when it gets dark or when it's night, you need to be as visible as possible on the road, and you also need to be able to see as much as possible on the road. So your wipers will help you clear the path ahead, but your lights will literally illuminate the path ahead. Forgive the pun. So let's have a look here. You need to make sure that your headlights are working properly, as well as that they are properly aligned. Headlights can go out of alignment, leading to either not lighting up the road properly or blinding other people as well and pissing them off. So what you need to do is make sure your headlight, all the bulbs are in good order, your headlights are working, and that they are properly aligned. If you have fog lights or driving lights, good as well, because those are very important in rainy weather as well, particularly during the daytime, Mahen. When you're driving in the daytime and it gets very cloudy and the light level drops as a result, you don't necessarily want to be using your headlights in that condition. Use the fog lights or the driving lights just to mark out your car where it is, so others know where it is. Some vehicles have daytime running lights too, which is perfectly good because you don't have to do a thing. They activate usually when the vehicle is started or put into drive. They operate on their own, so you don't have to worry about that. But you should check your DRLs and make sure that they are working, because even though they are LED bulbs still have a lifespan. And now that we have cars on our roads with DRLs that are approaching 10 years or more of age, it's very critical to check the DRLs. Then the next thing you need to check is your turn signals. Now, this is not just something for rain. Your turn signals should always be working. That is a legal requirement, and you should use them, of course. So check all your turn signals. Now, a very easy way to tell if your turn signal is busted on an older car is if it starts flashing faster than usual. But sometimes that flashing rate, Mahen, is not affected if one of these side marker lamps or side turn indicators goes, because those use much less power
Okay.
bulbs or
Okay.
LEDs. For example, on my Nissan, if a side indicator goes, it doesn't affect the flashing rate
Oh,
noticeably.
is it?
But
I
if a
didn't know
front
that.
one or rear one goes, it does, because the bulbs in the front and rear ones are much beefier, obviously. The side ones are much less power consuming. So as a result, you need to check these things by eye. You can do it like how I've done it here. Switch on the hazard lights and walk around your vehicle to have a look at it. Those are the lights. Remember, some cars have the lights on the mirrors as well here, what we
Yes.
call winker mirrors in Sri Lanka.
Yes.
Now let's move to the back of the car. So goes without saying, Mahen, brake lights and parking lights absolutely important. Especially brake lights, because brake lights are actually designed to be brighter than your regular parking lights. So you need to make sure that all your brake lights are working. The best way to do this is to have somebody else on the brake pedal and
Yes.
you have a look at it, or you be on the brake pedal and get somebody else to check for it.
Like
Then
Diana says, shine bright like diamonds.
exactly. Although if we could afford diamonds, we would never have to worry about our vehicle's lights or
Yes.
anything else for that matter. So at the rear, there are two more things we need to worry about. Our reversing lights, because in some cars, the reversing light is actually bright enough to throw some light behind and help you reverse. In other cars, it's just there to warn others that you're reversing. And the final thing is if your car has a rear fog lamp. Now, a rear fog lamp is really useful, Mahen, when you're driving, particularly on the highway or outstation, to tell the car that's behind you that you are there.
Oh, right.
Because in heavy rain,
Right.
especially if your car is, say, silver color, it's very hard to spot.
Fair enough.
So you don't want someone ramming into you, especially given you know how we drive in Sri Lanka.
Yes.
So if you have a rear fog lamp, make sure it works.
That.
But
Yes.
on the other hand, don't use your rear fog lamp in normal conditions because it's really bright and it can annoy those behind you.
Correct. Ashok, that brings me to my next point. If visibility is impaired, do not drive at your usual speed. Slow down a bit and see if you can park on the road on the side safely in a way that other vehicles also see you. But Ashok, I think if you don't have a light bright enough for people behind you to notice you, then that also can lead to a dangerous situation. So we have to look at the context and play it by ear, Ashok, I feel. You can't have a blanket approach to every situation, I guess.
That is true. You have to be constantly dynamic, you have to be on the ball, and you have to use your best judgment. Especially like you said, when driving on the highway, I know people who, because the limit is 100, they stick to 100, rain, shine, sleet, or snow. But the fact is, when I'm driving on the highway, if it's heavily raining, I am perfectly happy to go even to 60 and go in the left lane at the speed I feel is safest. Because remember, it's not a race. The highway is not a racetrack. So if it's raining, use your best judgment and slow down accordingly.
Keep yourself safe and everyone else safe as well.
Exactly.
So, the next thing to keep in mind is these rubber beadings, right? You got them in a few places in your car, right? Be mindful of the state of these rubbers, especially if your car is an older car, right? If it's more than 5 years old, especially, you need to be mindful of that. You got usually rubber seals going across or along the windscreen as well. Let me show you a better example here. Walk with me, Ashrak. So we are walking towards Ashrak's car, which is a little similar in terms of how it's constructed, especially where the windscreen is compared to my Verada. So these beadings are very important. These rubber seals, if they are not up to mark, it could let water in, and that water may not dry, it may get stagnated, and it will lead to corrosion. So Ashrak had an issue where that um, exactly happened to him, and he had to go through 2 weeks to 3 weeks of not having his car with him, his beloved car. And more than anything, it is a cumbersome task to do these windscreen repairs because you have to remove the dashboard, and when you do that, there are a lot of other components that may break due to wear and tear over time. So you don't want that happening. You can prevent it. So make sure that your rubber beadings are checked by a professional and replaced if required or necessary. Another thing to note, Ashrak, is this area over here between the bonnet and the windscreen. Especially if your car is more than 5 years old, go to a workshop and get this area inspected, get this rubber panel inspected, see if there are cracks or holes or any crevices that will let debris or any foreign objects inside this particular panel. If that happens, it's going to lead to corrosion with time. And that is what happened to me with my Mitsubishi Verada. I didn't even realize that there was a problem here. When it rained hard, I noticed that my carpets were wet, and I assumed that it was wet because I took it to a car wash, and they have accidentally put some water inside. So I was blissfully ignorant about the fact that it was actually an issue that I could not see. So we tried multiple things to figure it out without removing the dashboard. Although I was advised by my good friend Sulochana from that we need from we sort of told me that, Ashok, but I said okay, no, let's first try these other quick fixes and see if this works. So maybe sometimes a quick fix would work, but in the long term it may not. So what happened is, Ashok, you may know the story. There was a gap between the windscreen and this panel in my Verada, which let in foreign objects like leaves and small twigs in there. What happens when it rains is, or when you wash the car, all that water goes in here and it doesn't drip as it should. And those foreign objects hold water and dampness. With time, it created a slightly small hole here, which also let in water where my accelerator pedal and the brake pedal connected to the car. And it led to a serious hole in that area as well. So if I did not check this out, my accelerator pedal would have been moving freely without any support. And if that happened while I was driving, it would have been a very dangerous situation. So I thank God for kind of helping me understand that I had an issue and that I needed to address it. So although it may sound petty, it is not. These small things can lead to very serious incidents. So be mindful of your safety, and especially with corrosion, guys, you need to take this seriously because it's going to affect your car, it's going to affect your wallet, and it's going to affect your peace of mind. So make sure your rubber seals are all intact and get them checked by a professional. Yeah, so that's about it.
Yeah, I think so. That wraps up our little video on some of the most important tips that you need to take into account at the start of this rainy season. And I think we've covered it all, haven't we, Mahir, as
Yes,
far as I can?
maybe there might be a few aspects that we haven't covered, Ashok. Maybe that's for a video in the future. But always, guys, remember, drive responsibly and be safe. Protect yourself, your loved ones, and everyone else on the road.
Yes, that is very important. And if we have missed anything in this video, please tell us about it in the comments and we will do a new video on it.
Correct. Okay, Ashok, let's
Cool.
get going now
Let's
before
get
the
going.
rains come.
Yeah.